Of Q broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography destroys. It weakens your spirit. It dulls your drive. And it robs you of what real intimacy is supposed to be. Every click is a step away from the man you're supposed to be. We can't call ourselves leaders if we are slaves to a screen.
As someone that is prior service, I know all about discipline. And discipline isn't out there, it's within your mind. Porn rewires your brain, weakens your will, wrecks all of your relationships. It doesn't just stay on a screen, it invades your marriage, your confidence, and your actual purpose. As men, if we don't learn to discipline ourselves, we'll be ruled by our impulses. Now, it is time to stand up and take control before this silent war takes more than you're willing to lose.
Real men don't hide in the shadows of shame. We step up and we protect what's ours. We fight for our wives and kids, our own hearts. Twitter isn't just an app, it's a weapon. It's a tool used to break free and start living like the man that you're meant to be. The battle's here and it starts with you. You can stop living in shame and you can break free today.
Of Q broadcast, it's taking the world by storm. People are cutting the cord to their high cable bills and moving away from streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and others for something better. Q broadcast. For just $60 a month, you'll get access to every channel you could ever want, including HBO, Cinemax, and Stars. And the best part, there are no contracts, no hidden fees, and you're free to cancel anytime. With Q Broadcast, you can enjoy streaming live TV, movies, and top series on up to 5 devices at once. Whether you're at home or on the go, Q Broadcast makes sure your entertainment is always at your fingertips. Imagine being able to watch all your favorite channels from anywhere, anytime, without any restrictions. We're talking about thousands of movies, hundreds of TV series, and a huge library of live channels, all in one place. And don't forget video on demand and pay-per-view events. Those are included at no extra cost, so you'll never miss a big event again. Now, take a second and think about your current cable bill. You're probably paying anywhere between $100 and $300 every month, locked into long-term contracts and hit with surprise rate increases. With Q Broadcast, that's a thing of the past. It's just $60 a month. No contracts, no extra fees, no hidden costs, and no price hikes. Why juggle multiple subscriptions like Netflix, Hulu, and cable when Q Broadcast gives you everything you need in one convenient package? People everywhere are switching to Q Broadcast, saving money and getting more content than ever before. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description and sign up for Q Broadcast today. Just $60 a month, no contracts, no hidden fees. It's time to take control of your entertainment and start streaming smarter.
We live in a world where men are told it's harmless. It's just entertainment. But let's stop lying to ourselves. Pornography
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Ann Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response: shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, isn't it?
Well,
Yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrissey?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
That she feels like she doesn't want to be like everyone else. And she wants to be her own person. And through the dress code and her lifestyle, she's expressing this. It doesn't conform with our rules, but we're learning to cope, and it's a very, very difficult thing. Extremely difficult.
Dareth, let's let you talk for yourself. You're from Long Beach, California.
I just can't handle being like everybody else because that's what everybody else wants, you know. Just because somebody else does something does not mean that I have to do it. You know, I have my own morals and ideals, and I go by them.
Are you drug-free, Dareth?
Yes, I am.
Is this a political statement then? Do you have some misgiving about the society that you see?
Yeah, there's a lot of problems, you know. A lot of the people are really aware of what's going on, you know, and I don't like it, you know. There's a lot of problems.
What?
I don't like the way society is based.
What bothers you? Give us some of the misgivings you have.
The rich, the poor, the people starving, the wars, you know. Why can't, you know, everybody just get along and just live their life?
Here at the Anomic Age, we know that these times of uncertainty are stressful. It is incumbent upon all of us to put our fears first and bow down to government tyranny. Gone are the days of freely leaving your home, working, and social interactions. In exchange for safety, we will trade liberty. At the Anomic Age, we understand. However, just in case you want to get off your knees and stop being a sniveling coward, check out the John Age Project at anomicage.com.
Meet Ann Morrissey, who is here with her daughter, Dareth. Dareth is 17 years old. Mrs. Morrissey, I don't have to tell you that most parents would be extremely depressed if their daughter came home one day looking like this. I assume that was your response shock, anger, depression? What was it?
I was extremely angry. I really went bananas.
Yeah, how old was she when this happened?
Possibly 13, 14 years old.
We're talking like it's a disease, isn't that?
Well,
Yeah. How did she explain it to you, Mrs. Morrison?
there was very poor communication until we went into counseling. And it almost broke up our family. But through counseling and Serena, I can understand it better.
What do you understand?
Selling real and Chevy.
Propagate truth in a world of lies. You are listening to the John H. Project.
Trust no one. Trust no one. Trust no one.
You found it. You're here. You're headlong down the runaway train that is the Anomic Age. I'm your host, John Age. Happy to be back with you once again, coming at you, or will be anyway, in the wee hours of the AM, taking you well into the dark side of the AM. So thanks for tuning in. We got a great show for you today. We got none other than Dr. Bill Birnes with us. But before we get into that, please check out anomicage.com. If you've not already done so, please check out the brand new and updated webpage. Like all the likes, subscribe to all the subscriptions. PayPal.me/anomicage, Patreon.com/anomicage as well. That's the best way you can help me out, support the show. As always, I'm on the usual suspect social media sites, so check me out there. If you need some help finding them, anomicage.com, all that good stuff is right there too. So, without further ado, let me put up our guest information on the screen. Everything Bill Birnes can be found at shadowlawnpress.com. That's going to be on your screen as well. A lovely vitae. Dr. Bill Birnes is a New York Times best-selling author, magazine publisher, and New York literary publishing agent who has written and edited over 25 books and encyclopedias in the fields of human behavior, true crime, current affairs, history, psychology, business, computing, and the paranormal. As publisher of the nationally distributed UFO magazine, editor of the UFO Encyclopedia by Pocket Books, and co-author with the nation's top talk show host, George Norrie, of A Worker in the Light, Dr. Birnes has added to his list of publications in the UFO and paranormal field, which include The Day After Roswell, Unsolved UFO Mysteries, and The Haunting of Presidents. William Birnes received his PhD from New York University in 1974, while he was an instructor of English at Trenton State College in New Jersey, where he taught structural linguistics and historical linguistics, as well as literature and writing. Professor Birnes was a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellow, a Lilly Postdoctoral Research Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania, and a Grants Award Judge for the National Endowment of the Arts. Love it, Dr. Birnes. Quite the vitae, sir. Thank you so much for being with us. I am very happy to have you with us.
It's my pleasure.
Definitely. It's so good to hear you. So good to see you. I was talking to you for a second before the show. I can't believe it's been 2023. I followed up and said 2003, but it's 2023 since we last talked. I'm happy to have you back, man.
Well, I'm happy to be here.
Got a little bit of an echo. I don't know what in the world's up with that.
Any better?
That's better. Yes, sir. It's much better. Maybe it was just picking up the feedback there. I don't know. Anyway, it was so good to talk to you again. So good to see you. You're looking fit and well. I'm glad to hear you're still doing some moving, but other than that, sounds like you're doing good.
Physically moving. It's a shock, but there it is.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to get into. I mean, so much has happened, I feel like, since we last talked. And, there's so many people out there talking about UFOs and comets and meteors and everything else. And I thought you'd be the perfect person to talk to. I mean, when I first tried to get a hold of you a couple weeks ago, we were still in the throes of the comets or the meteors. I think they're calling them meteors that were 4 or 5 different big sites across the U.S.
Right. There were a whole bunch of meteor showers that we were experiencing, and they've passed. And then last year, a couple of years ago, there was all the drone footage over New Jersey. I mean, you couldn't even look up without seeing fleets of drones.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the obvious question here is, what in the world do you think this is about? Is it actual meteors? Is it drones? There's so much, even where I'm living now, they had some sort of crazy, fireworks light show that was, a couple months back, in the Christmas season. They had all kinds of, even stuff here in the small place I'm at, they had all this stuff going on. And we already know that the feds have so much more than they're really telling us. What do you think is up with all this?
Well, I can tell you this much, just from personal experience. I learned from one of the Army remote viewers, and we remember what remote viewing was, started back in the 1970s with, it was a CIA-sponsored program to train people to use their minds to communicate with other people and travel to distant places without leaving their chairs. That was called the Spygate remote viewing program. And it was sponsored by the CIA at first. That was the research at Stanford Research Institute. And then the Army picked it up at Fort Belvoir and shut it down when one of the remote viewers actually traveled 48 hours into the future to see an event. And when that event eventually happened, the Army was so spooked out, the general shut it down. In another instance, when we were mustering for the first episode of UFO Hunters, we were met at the airport by a former CIA test pilot. And he told us this story to show us how far advanced we are. He said that he was flying one of these CIA test jets at Area 51, and the thing was falling apart. It was a bucket of bolts. He manages to land the thing without crashing it, gets out of the plane and says, you know what, the hell with this. I'm not flying these like monstrosities anymore. I'm gone. Leaves the CIA, leaves Area 51, goes back to Florida, starts a crop dusting business in Florida. Doing it a couple of years, suddenly he's landing in an airstrip and he sees a black limousine with white wall tires and two men in dark suits standing outside the car. He says, oh my God, I know what this is. Lands the plane, they walk up, they say, hey, how are you doing? Wanted to just touch base and see how things were going. So I'm going fine. I'm going fine. And they say to him, we know that your pilot's license is coming up. Be a shame if you couldn't get that pilot's license renewed. Goes, okay, what do you want? They say, one more flight, just one. Then you can leave with a handshake and we're good forever. Flying back to Area 51 into this long hangar, which I've seen from Tickaboo Peak, long black hangar. They say, all we want you to do is test out this flight simulator. You're not even going to go in the air. It's a flight simulator. It looks like a phone booth. Okay, I'll test out he said, we're going to throw you problems. You solve the problems in the flight simulator. When you're done, you're done. You go home. Fine. Gets into the flight simulator. On one end of it's on one far end of the hangar. Feels a wave of nausea. Turns black. Opens his eyes again. Looks out. He's on the other side of the hangar. He had no sense of motion. It was instantaneous. And he's all the way on the other side of the hangar. He's been transported or copied. He gets out of the flight simulator and says, goodbye, never again. Walks out. We have the ability to transport human beings just like the Star Trek transporter. That's how far advanced we are.
Bill, could you put your camera down just a little bit? It's like it's cutting. There you go. That's perfect. It was cutting the bottom of your head off. I didn't want it to leave you decapitated.
Okay.
So they were doing this at Area 51 out there?
Yes, years ago.
Man. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I've always heard. And, I'm sure you might know a little bit more than me. I've always heard we're at least 50 years advanced from the tech that we, the plebs.
Easily 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of look at, they just supposedly did this Artemis 2 thing. I don't know about you. I always see this as just vastly optics for the slaves to keep us entertained. Like you just said, I mean, they got stuff that they could probably transport you or me to wherever they wanted to in a blink of an eye, right?
When I was publishing the magazine, we were working with this, he's a psychologist, but years ago, he was an Air Force photo expert when he was in the Air Force, and he would repair all the cameras. And he told us this story. He was working at a secure Air Force base. He didn't tell me where. And he said the base was divided into two parts. One part was public, regular Air Force, military all around, just a normal Air Force base. And he had a workshop in that part of the base where he'd repair the photo equipment. One Sunday, and the other side of the base was secret. He couldn't go there. Didn't have clearance. One Sunday morning, he's working in a shop. Somebody comes from the other side of the base and says, we need your help. On the other side of the base, there's a printer, a photo printer that's printing stuff from one of our satellites. It broke. We need you to fix it. So he says, well, I don't have clearance to go to the other side of the base, so I can't help you out. He says, well, I can get you clearance. Walks him over to the other side of the base. He sees the machine. He says, oh, I've got to take this machine back to my shop. He said, you mean you want to move the machine back to the other side of the base? And he's looking around the space, and he sees people from different countries. He sees Asian people. He sees Middle Eastern people. He sees Europeans. He can't figure out why there were so many non-Americans at an Air Force base, at a secure part of the base. They take the machine back to his shop, finds the parts he needs, installs it. Suddenly, without turning it on, the machine comes on and starts printing stuff. And he looks at the print, and it's the moon. And what's on the moon? Factories. There are factories on the moon. And he says to the guy from the other side of the base, "Oh my God, what's this?" And this person suddenly realizes that my friend wasn't cleared to see this. And he looks up, he sees all the factories and individuals in the factories, and he looks at my friend and says, "We're both dead."
Yikes.
That's what's on the moon.
I'm thinking this guy lived to fight another day, or did he have an accident?
Oh, he lived to fight another day, believe me.
Jeez. Well, I mean, this kind of leads us into something else I wanted to talk about, these missing scientists. I'm sure you've seen this, and I mean, it's been going on for a while, but I guess it's kind of caught the ire of the general public here in the last, I don't know, 3-4 weeks here, where we're up to 11 allegedly missing scientists, where some of them have been murdered, some of them have just vanished, and these are really high-level folks. Have you looked at any of this?
And then what about this Air Force General McCasland,
Exactly.
who was the Air Force's UFO guy? Just disappeared. Left his cell phone, left his wallet, left his glasses, left his car keys, left everything, and he's just gone.
Yeah.
Who's doing this abducting? Is it our intelligence services? Is it the secret government? I mean, remember when Bill Clinton became president, gets into office, this is 93, I think, gets into office, and he says, "I'm going to send my Deputy Attorney General, Webster Hubbell, to find the answers to 2 questions. Who killed JFK and what happened at Roswell?" Webster Hubbell goes to find out, comes back to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton makes this announcement public. He says, "I've discovered there is a government within our government." Who's that government? Flash forward 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. Seth Meyers on television asks President Barack Obama, now he's retired, he's termed out, retired president, asks him, "What really happened at Roswell?" And you know what President Obama says? He says, "They tell me not to talk about it." He didn't say nothing. He didn't say, "Oh, that's a myth." He didn't say that's a joke. He says, "They tell me not to talk about it." So what are the obvious questions, Mr. President? Who's the they? What's the it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, who's there higher than the president?
I mean, it seems like the proverbial military-industrial complex is the ones actually pulling the strings, and everything, you know, president, House, Senate, and otherwise, is just kind of vestigial, just for the people to pretend they got a vote.
If it's the military-industrial complex, and who's in the military-industrial complex? Are there ETs in that complex? I mean, Navy people have testified before Congress. To Congressman Tim Burchett, who made this announcement, Tim Burchett said, "Oh, there are Navy people that I spoke to who told me there are UFO bases under the oceans on this planet. There's one between Florida and Cuba in the Gulf of Mexico. There's one off the coast of Catalina in the Catalina Channel between San Pedro and Catalina. And there's one off Point Dume in Malibu, California." Not to mention Japan's Dragon Sea and our own Bermuda Triangle or the Alaska Triangle.
I got to ask you, how do you know where these underground, or excuse me, underground's a whole other ball of wax, these undersea bases are?
Well, we had a Navy specialist who told us where they were. The Navy knows where they are. That's why our submarines avoid them. And in fact, even when we were in the Gulf, we were actually seeing large lights floating underwater.
Mm-hmm.
And the fishermen will tell you stories about their fishing, and suddenly this light goes under their boat, scares the hell out of them.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of similar stories from the Great Lakes as far as a lot of UFO or UAP or whatever there are underwater. What they're calling them now, you know?
Well, there's a Shag Harbor incident in Canada, and the mounted police covered that up. They were all over that.
That's crazy. Well, what do you think's going on with these missing scientists? You think these folks, I mean, some of them are deceased, so we know what happened to them allegedly. Well,
Right.
the story, they committed suicide, or we've had a couple of different guys here. I got a list of them. I was working on this for the show. We got a list of them where a random gunman just decides to gun down a top scientist, and then you got like McCasland's there, just decided to take a walk and not come home, I guess.
Yeah. And who takes a walk? No cell phone, no car keys, no wallet, no ID. Who's abducting these people? Is it us or is it them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was looking at too. A lot of these folks have missing, they left their car keys at home. They left everything at home. I think McCasland's there allegedly. Wife said he left with a .38 pistol and his boots, and everything else was at the house.
Right.
McCasland.
That's right. That's an unsolved mystery.
And he just happened to be the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, like, lead scientist.
That's right. Exactly. And what happened at Wright-Patterson? Wright-Patterson was the first initial base to receive debris from the crash at Roswell and the live aliens.
So it's been the hub since the 40s.
Right, because we know that the National Air War College of 1948, right after the crash at Roswell, 1948, and you know what these military colleges are? They transform junior officers into senior officers because senior officers are making policy for their respective militaries. So this one person who helped win the Battle of Okinawa in 1945, Marion Magruder, he was a Marine aviator or Marine lieutenant colonel who had trained with the RAF on radar vectored night fighting, which he was bringing back to the Marines, to the Navy. Battle of Okinawa. Japanese Zeros and kamikazes are attacking our aircraft carriers. If they could knock out the aircraft carriers, we couldn't bomb Okinawa and establish an airfield there to invade, to bomb Japan. So it was a do or die mission for the Japanese Air Force. They start bombing our aircraft carriers. Marion Magruder's radar vectored night fighters attack the kamikazes, blow them out of the water, blow them out of the air. He saves the Battle of Okinawa. He's a hero. 1948. He's in the National Air War College to go from a lieutenant colonel to a full bird, senior officer.
Yeah.
They do a TDY to Wright Field, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but it's Wright Field back in 1948. They lead him into a glass chamber. And in there, he's looking at these pieces of debris. He's never seen it before. It's got strange markings on it. Then they take him into another room, and there behind a glass partition is a creature. And what he told his children was the scariest part of that creature is that it looked human, but you knew that it wasn't. Eyes were too big, arms were too long, and it was moving. He called it squiggly. That creature communicated with him telepathically and said, they are testing me and they're killing me. And to the day he died 50 years later, he said that was one of God's creatures. It was a shameful thing we did. And
Well,
this guy was no slouch. After he retired from the Air Force, from the Marines, he became the largest McDonald's franchiser in the Southwest. So he was a business guy.
And what's this guy's name one more time?
Marion Magruder.
Jeez. So that kind of raises the other question: Are they creating alien human hybrids? You know, a la the Nephilim, or is this some sort of creature?
That's what I believe. And I believe that it started not in 1947, but it started 6,000 years ago. In the book of Genesis, what does it say? It said that Enoch, son of Seth, grandson of Adam, Enoch is the son from which all human beings are derived, right? Cain killed Abel, so one of Adam's sons is dead, and then God puts the mark of Cain on Cain, and he kind of vanishes into history. But the third son, Seth, had a son called Enoch. Enoch is taken up by the Watchers, brought back to earth. What happens next? The Nephilim come down. What do Nephilim mean? Nephilim don't mean giant. Nephilim doesn't mean giants. Nephal is a verb, Aramaic. It means to descend. I am is a nominative ending. It means those who descended. The Nephilim come down, and what does Genesis tell you? The children of the Nephilim mated with the children of men. Alien hybridizations right here on this planet. We are the descendants of that hybridization.
So you think that's what was in this?
In other words, we've met the aliens and they are us.
That's what I was about to say. Man. So what you're thinking, this thing in the lab was just something from our own labs, or something pulled through a portal or through the...
No, in the lab that at Wright Field, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
He was an alien from the crash at Roswell, the live alien. Eisenhower, I was told by a couple of directors of NASA that President Eisenhower kept live aliens at Area 51. And I know from having spoken to the late television comedian Jackie Gleason, movie star comedian, that one night he was good friends with Richard Nixon. They both had properties in Florida. They were both friends with B.B. Rebozo, organized crime guy. Jackie Gleason told the folks at Sony Pictures, told his wife, Barbara Taylor, one night, and Jackie would bug Richard Nixon. Oh, come on, Mr. President, tell me all about aliens. I know you know about aliens. Jackie Gleason was a fanatic about the paranormal. Nixon says to him, you asked me that question one more time, I'm never going to speak to you again. One night, President Nixon's limo pulls up to Jackie's estate in Florida, gets out, bangs on the door, get in the car. Gleason is shocked to see the President of the United States at his front door. Gets in the car, they drive to Homestead Air Force Base. The guard at the base is stunned to see the President in the car. They go to this remote corner of the base. Nixon says to Gleason, look in there. He looks in there and he sees an alien body floating in a coffin. It so shook Gleason up that when he comes back to California to make a movie, he tells everybody at Sony Pictures. He is stunned. His wife tells me he was forever changed. He tells me he was shocked. So that's another story about aliens here on this planet.
Yeah, I would be too. Which kind of begs the question. I mean, you know more about this than myself, but there's so many different varieties of aliens, so to speak. And it seems to, follow this every few generations has like a different variety. We got all the way back to the Nordics, to whatever they had in the biblical era paintings, or I guess not biblical era, but Dark Ages paintings, better one. And
Right.
all the way up to the Greys, to reptilian creatures, to creatures that look like a praying mantis. I mean, we got the variety. It looks like that old bar in Star Wars movie.
Mhm. Well, this Earth, our planet, is a truck stop. We're a water planet. We're a mineral-rich planet, gold and precious metals and all kinds of things that other creatures from different planets need. That's why they're here.
That makes sense. And I started talking about this earlier, but I jump around a lot. But, to the underground bases, we touched on the underwater bases. I've heard, going back to the Art Bell days, that there's an underground base under Arizona that links into, submarine tunnels somewhere. And we got a train going underground from East Coast to West Coast. And if it's doing that, it's probably going continental to other continents too. Any intel on that one? I mean, there's obviously underground bases. We know that, but.
Well, yeah, sure, because one of the people who had worked for the military there are underground tunnels, and that people can get from across the country in underground tunnels. There's one tunnel, he said, from the coast right off Malibu, Point Doom, all the way underwater, submarine base, all the way underwater from Point Doom, all the way to the China Lake Navy base, all the way to Nevada. So yeah, we have weapons and technology far beyond what we know, what the public knows.
For sure. Which kind of begs the question, back to the scientist. I feel like I'm skipping around a little bit, but I mean, the scientist thing, going back to Eisenhower even, is there a secret sort of treaty, I guess, if you will, between the alien, extra-dimensional, interdimensional, extraterrestrial, whatever entities and the humans? And then if so, we're bound to have some of these scientists sworn in on this. Are they taking retirement, or are they just getting snuffed out because they know too much, or they're about to reveal, or I mean, there's a lot to examine here.
My theory is that with all these disclosure hearings in Congress, people like Tim Burchett, Robert Maxwell, and others talking about this, people who might be induced to come forward to testify, who know the truth, who know what's really going on, they're the ones that are disappearing. So you've got two forces. There's the congressional push and all these committees for disclosure, quote unquote disclosure, and you've got experts, people with experience who may be called to testify, and they conveniently disappear.
Yeah. I think that's one of the last names I was looking up yesterday and today. This was Matthew James Sullivan, Air Force vet. He was a pilot, I believe. He was supposed to do a congressional testimony, and he has an alcohol and drug overdose a couple weeks before he was supposed to testify.
Yeah, exactly. who's doing all this abducting and killing? Could it be the aliens themselves?
Yeah.
We're not ready for disclosure. You're not ready to learn about disclosure. You've got a few more generations to go. So anybody who's going to come forward is going to meet an untimely end.
Mm-hmm. Or they've fallen into some sort of weird portal or something. I don't know. I mean, I follow the work of David Paulides a little bit with Missing 411. I think listening to his show is where I first heard about General McCasland's, 2-3 months back. He does a lot with just missing people, and he never pinpoints what the heck it could be, but I guess nobody really knows. It's like, are they dropping into a wormhole somewhere and just vanishing?
Right, nobody knows for sure. Right.
Yeah. And I've heard quite a bit lately about the Huntsville, Alabama tie. I mean, obviously to the rocket technology and everything like that, but it seems to be, I don't know if it's how Denver is kind of the second DC. I don't know if Huntsville is kind of the real hub of NASA or not. You got any intel on that one?
Well, we were at NASA in Huntsville, and there was the Space Academy at Huntsville, where they're training kids to, in space technology. So that's a real hot spot. So are there aliens at Huntsville? Are there aliens under the airport in Colorado? Is that an underground base?
Yeah, I saw some pretty funny stuff yesterday. I guess they're doing a lot of work at the airport there in Denver, and they have these big signs that say, something to the effect of "We're working" and so forth and so on. But they have weird reptilian people like pushing a janitor cart or like this really odd stuff. It's like, could you get any more in your face with this stuff, or is it all just a big joke?
Right, people. Yeah, you can imagine that various people who are working on these projects are quietly slipping stuff out as teasers, because nobody can really say, "Oh, they're here, they are us, they're governing our planet." No, you can't. No, nobody's going to say that. Human beings wouldn't accept that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the general public is just so untrusting of everything right now. I don't know if they'd believe the old White House lawn thing. I think we've kind of jumped the shark with everything, where everything has become super saturated with just lies and BS. It's like, I don't know.
Well, one thing we believe, people who've been abducted, and I've spoken to many, many, many contactees and abductees, say that parts of their psyches seem to be turned on like a switch when they've communicated with aliens. They suddenly can read minds. They suddenly can make predictions about the future. They suddenly can influence events. Maybe that's the reason there's no disclosure, that we're not ready to use the kind of powers we already have because we're not trained to use them. We're not mature enough as a species to use them.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of the same stuff. And I mean, I think this is becoming more prevalent now, or maybe it's just becoming more open now. I mean, you got guys like Chris Bledsoe, not too far from where I'm at, as far as I know anyway, but, claiming to now have the ability to sort of summon these objects, lights. I don't even know what you want to call them anymore, but maybe that's part of that. Like you said, people now having sort of ESP ability or precognition ability, things like that, is just now somehow now they could just summon these things. Yeah, I don't know if that's legit or not. I wasn't there, but seems pretty telling.
That's what people talk about. That's why there are repeat abductions through generations.
So you might have like a mother and the daughter and the grandchild. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Betty Hill told me that one of the things she discovered was that her parents, her grandparents, had strange contact with strange creatures.
And I've never heard that before. What happened with the grandparents?
She learned through her experiences with her abductors that she was part of a generational flow of people whose egg cells were being hybridized.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Did she claim to have sort of precognitive or psychic
She
abilities?
did. At the end of her life, she admitted it.
Wow. That's wild. That's one thing I think people, 2026 don't understand, because our society has kind of become more open to this. But, 20, 30 years ago, even, people kind of kept a lot of this undercover. They didn't want to talk about seeing things or hearing things or being able to, have precognitive abilities.
Exactly. They think you were crazy. They
Yeah.
put you in an institution.
Yeah, I wonder, I mean, just sort of ad hoc thought here, but I've heard a lot of females being more likely to have these psychic abilities, and it's usually passed down that sort of maternal line. Not just to say men don't have this, but it seems to be more of a female thing. I don't know if that's because of some of these alien abductions over thousands of years or hundreds of years, or we don't even know how long, really.
Right. See, what they're doing is they're harvesting female ova, fertilizing it with themselves, reimplanting it in successive generations to bring the human race to where they are.
Mm-hmm. Man, this opens a whole nother ball of wax, going all biblical on stuff. Is this the Zechariah Sitchin stuff and everything else? Is this how humans became humans, or?
Exactly. When one of the big revelations in historical forensic anthropology was that we discovered that very, very, very early hominids, Denisovans, they look more like gorillas than humans, but Denisovans had DNA that shouldn't be there. Where'd that DNA come from?
Mm-hmm.
My theory, ancient aliens have been here since the very beginning, hybridizing native species on this planet to create their own hybridized human alien species, us.
Do you think this is for their own nefarious purposes? Is it like we're doing, or are they just harvesting body parts?
I think what they're doing is, just like we are sending our spacecraft Voyagers and everything else out to the end of the solar system, that's what they've been doing for billions of years. We're just a colony of those ETs.
And I'm thinking some of these creatures, whatever you want to call them, have got to be, I don't know, kind of like the different species of life on this earth. Some of these things have got to be interdimensional, subterranean, because you've got, to weave in some archaeology, you've got a lot of different cultures that would say, these beings came from underground and they came up and they gave us this technology and they're going to come back. I mean, it's very reminiscent of even biblical narratives. It's just sort of a subterranean species, sort of.
That's correct. I mean, I've one of my magazine subscribers years and years ago told me this story, that every night, this is in Michigan, northern Michigan, every night he'd see these strange kind of creatures in his backyard. They were humanoid, but he didn't know what they were. And they would be in his backyard, and he thought, oh my God, I should feed them. So he'd put food out, and they would bring their children out to eat. One night, he decided to follow one of these. They were big creatures too, 7, 8 feet tall. Jeez. One night, he decided to follow one of them into the woods. And the thing looked at him and bared its teeth. This guy ran in the other direction. So he told this radio commentator. The radio commentator said, okay, fine. He sent a photographer there. The photographer caught these people on camera. He said he'd never seen anything like it. So there's more than one species living on this planet.
It sure sounds like it. Yeah, I kind of wonder if some of these underground bases, are ours or theirs. There's a lot of this conjecture as to whether or not the fancy buildings and the nice stuff that we have is all ours, or if it was some sort of pre-civilization and stuff like that. It's a lot to tackle out there.
Well, let's just say it's shared, and that's another reason why there's been no disclosure.
Mm-hmm. And I can't help but notice virtually all of the big archaeological sites are now UNESCO World Heritage sites. So, I mean, like the Mayan don't even own Tulum or Chichen Itza. It's now somehow some big consortium of multinational governments own them, I guess.
It's true. Absolutely true. Same thing with Egypt. We came in there with ground penetrating radar, finding cities underneath the Giza Plateau.
Mm-hmm.
The Egyptian scientists were furious at us.
Which begs the question, why? What were they so upset about?
Exactly. What did they know that we don't?
Yeah, I mean, so much of this stuff just pops up on the radar and everybody, oh boy, we got some big, and then it vanishes. Like, I mean, not the same thing you were talking about, but I know about 3 months ago, or maybe a little bit more, they did some sort of great ground penetrating radar and revealed these tremendous columns under the pyramids, and everybody was talking about it.
There's a whole complex under the Giza Plateau. Is it just for burial? But there's a city under there.
Mm-hmm.
Why is there a city under there? Who is the city for? We think that was an ancient alien settlement. And they built the Giza Plateau. And the pyramids in Giza are an earthly mirror of the constellation of Pleiades. And there are pyramids in all cultures across the earth, not just Egypt, Mesoamerica, South America, the Native American tribes. Here, the indigenous peoples in North America had them.
Mm-hmm.
Turkey, the Middle East. Why is there one shape turning up in places where there shouldn't have been any communication between prehistoric populations?
Exactly. I mean, one thing I wanted to get into, well, it's really just something I've been thinking about over the last few days, is the old proverbial, where are the people? Because when you look at even sites like Cahokia in America, and you run all the way south of the Mississippi, you got a big site, an archaic site called Poverty Point. Big sites, not a heck of a lot of people. And then you run the same play if you want to go into Mexico, Central America. There's some huge sites there, but where the heck are the people? I mean, I know Teotihuacan being one of the big ones, just north of Mexico City, seemed to be like the blueprint for the Aztecs and even a lot of the Mayan complexes. Huge site, but all archaeologists are kind of, I don't know where the people are.
That's right.
Did they get taken out?
And these were individuals who, before the use of telescopes, before the use of computers, before anything, were doing astronomical observations accurately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Chichen Itza by itself is just this amazing site to look at the celestial, and they were counting and doing all this higher math. They didn't, like I always jokingly say, they didn't throw this pyramid up on a weekend. It wasn't a couple guys just saying, hey, we're bored, let's throw this, this was not the technology.
We don't even have the machines now that can make those kinds of joinings between the big rocks.
Yeah. So I keep wondering if some of these people weren't just taken away, not necessarily conquered by alien technology, but they seem to have vanished a lot like these scientists, a lot of like the people David Paulides and others touch on. Maybe they just got whisked away by other beings. I don't know. Just a thought in the wind here.
Well, there's a lot of mixing between aliens and ancient cultures to transform the human race. I mean, remember, we're a colony, and they're building us up to be their civilization. And you know that the latest Martian flybys and landings, they found elements of life, building chemicals that are the building blocks of life on the Martian surface. And Mars once had water. Could it be, which the folks at SETI told me, that life, human life, started on Mars, and when Mars was bombarded by meteors and blew its atmosphere off, chunks of Mars fell into our oceans, and that's what started life on this planet. So human beings are really Martians.
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Because we've all heard the alleged images of pyramids and other structures. I mean, like you said in the beginning of our conversation, other structures on the moon, but we've definitely heard that about the pyramids of Mars and everything else.
Right. Right. There are pyramids on some of the other planets in the solar system too. The moons of Saturn. We think that the pyramids, the pyramid under the Alaska Triangle, the Dark Pyramid, we think that they're power sources and communications beacons.
Yeah, that's one we don't hear enough about, is the one in Alaska. Could you give us a little bit more info on that one? Because, I mean...
Well, yeah, back in the 90s, this geologist, the Alaska Triangle is a strange place to begin with. It's like the Bermuda Triangle. Radios don't work. Underneath there, this person discovered this massive rock structure. Moisler, his name was, I think, that shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been there. And the more he examined that rock structure seismically, he found out that it was pulsating energy. Is it an energy source? Was it a communications device? Is it from a foreign intelligence service? Is it from our intelligence services? Didn't know, but it's there, it's pulsating, and it's distorting radio waves all around it. That's the Dark Pyramid in the Alaska Triangle.
And I'm guessing there's no way to actually get down to it and see what the heck is up. Or there is, but we're not going to find that out.
There is, but nobody's going to tell us.
Man, there's got to, I mean, there's enough military bases around that vicinity. Well, somebody knows. There's not, yeah, like you said, they're not going to tell us what they...
Right. And remember, that's the area where that Japanese Airlines plane encountered a UFO, and that UFO encounter with the JAL, a commercial airliner on its way to Korea. That encounter was picked up at Ellendorf Air Force Base in Alaska. Multiple sightings.
I didn't realize that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So is there anything of significance near this site right now? Or is this just sort of out in
over
open
the
water?
Alaska Triangle, yeah. Well, we have bases there.
Yeah. Man, it's It's kind of like that the John Carpenter movie, The Thing. It really gets you wondering what the heck is going on at some of these very frigid areas.
Right. Hostile to us, but not to them.
Mm-hmm. And I've heard a little bit about the Antarctica material as well, but of course, we're not going to see anything on Google Earth of that either with the pyramid
No, we're not.
structure.
Not at all. Plus, since Antarctica is melting so rapidly, we don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a couple of years ago. I think there was just a rash of different celebrities that were randomly making their way down to Antarctica. I was just thinking, what in the devil's going on? Like, I can't go down there. What are you guys doing down there?
That's right. That's right. Something is happening in Antarctica, not just the melting of the glacier, but things that are happening in the Antarctica research bases.
And this goes all the way back to, oh my goodness, his name's escaped me right now. The famous general
Admiral
that went
Byrd.
yeah, exactly. Thank you, Admiral Byrd, that went down there and had
Right,
an
after the
alleged
war.
diary. I've heard it's a forgery. I've heard it's a real thing. You know,
No.
it's
I edited the diary. It's the real thing.
Mm-hmm. So he went down there and saw something, for sure.
Well, more than something. First of all, one story says that toward the end of the 19th century, the Germans made their way to under the South Pole and established a kingdom down there called New Swabia.
Mm-hmm.
After the war, Admiral Byrd led a squadron of Navy aircraft down under the earth from the South Pole. There they encountered a fleet of UFOs, destroyed Admiral Byrd's fleet, told him, never come back here. We're sending you back, but you tell your people never come down here. And that's what he did.
Yeah, this kind of connects into those scientists once again. You know, he went down there, published, or at least had published later this diary, had some pretty crazy encounters, and then kind of faded into obscurity.
That's right.
And we're talking about Admiral here, folks. We're not talking about just like an E1 or, you know, a subordinate guy on a base here. This is a pretty big person.
Right. He was very high up.
So do we have any confirmation of these Nazi bases other than Admiral Byrd's?
Well, that was the big one. And New Swabia wasn't necessarily a Nazi base. It was before there were Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the theory, you probably heard of this person, Helena Blavatsky, Madame Blavatsky.
Yes.
She said, talk about ancient alien theory. She said that humans on Earth came from a planet called Albaron. They landed in Thule, Greenland, and populated the Earth, and they became the Aryans. And that's what the early Nazi, quote unquote, philosophical thinkers, how they justified themselves as Aryan master races by saying, we're the descendants of the ancient aliens. So this theory goes back all the way to the 19th century.
And you got to talk about Aleister Crowley in there too, who apparently had some sort of encounter with something he called LAM, L-A-M, I believe.
Right.
Looked a heck of a lot like the cover of the the communion book, you know, with the big eyes and the big almond-shaped sort of skull.
Right. I mean, Aleister Crowley was in a group of thinkers with H.G. Wells, Jules Verne, and they were the Golden Dawn, George Barnard Shaw. They were the Golden Dawn Society.
Mm-hmm.
And they believed in a reality beyond our reality.
So the occult, I mean, going all the way into NASA, I mean, we've kind of covered from Blavatsky Aleister Crowley and all the way into NASA with Jack Parsons. I mean, there's a really thick occult thread in all this. I mean, connecting it with some Nazis too. I mean, it's occultism all the way with this stuff.
That's right. I mean, and one of the recipients of a lot of that theory was Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek.
Sounds a lot like the predictive programming again, where they're telling you what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to run, so.
Okay. Well, I figured we were right on our time here.
Okay,
well,
good. Well, thank you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bill. And where can everybody find your work one more time? I'm going to put the site on the screen while you're talking about it.
Shadowrunpress.com. It's all there.
Shadowlandpress.com is the best way to contact.
Shadowrunpress.com. Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Bill. I look forward to talking to you again, man. Be safe out there.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Whew. All right, folks. My goodness. That was a lot of information in a short amount of time. We got to talk to Bill Birnes again. Great conversation as always, folks. If you missed any of that, feel free to rewind. Take some notes. That's what I'm going to do. A lot of that stuff I didn't know myself. My goodness. All right, folks. We're at the end of the rainbow here. You can't do everything, but you can do something. Be safe out there. I'll be seeing you sooner than later in the Anomic Age.
Thank you for listening to The Anomic Age, a John Age project. For past shows, further info, and to comment, go to anomicage.com. That's ANOMICAGE.com. Till next time, thank you for listening to The Anomic Age.